Hello all. A few things to go over. So today I spilt the beans on an attack I believe is possible, where specifically you can trigger hypervisor, malware detection going on inside cloud providers, VPS solutions like Amazon Web Server, if you upload malicious stuff, using OpReturn. And predictably, the responses show that people don't understand what I'm talking about, especially from the core devs, which is surprising. The ones that aren't just, hurling insults at me are always going about XOR, which is this, well, they called it encryption for a bit, but it's not really encryption. It's just mild obfuscation of what gets stored on the disk in, in the blocks folder inside your Bitcoin directory. But that's not going to trigger anything because that is enough to deter, malware detection. But it's the fact that transactions have to be verified as valid, which means at some point the data is passed into RAM in an unobfuscated capacity. And the reason this stuff is not a concern, I mean, I have explained this at length anyway, but they keep missing the point. The reason putting massive amounts of malware into the existing ways of storing large amounts of data in Bitcoin's blockchain is that it all gets broken up into chunks, so it won't trigger any of that stuff. OpReturn at 100,000 bytes is different because it's contiguous at that point. And talking about XOR obfuscation is not relevant because it's not just uploaded in an encrypted state to your hard drive, it's processed in RAM. And your hypervisor, the hypervisor run by the VPS, is going to monitor that and say what's going on here, what's being processed, and it's going to flag it, and it's going to cause a bunch of these cloud-based nodes to go offline. I said this and I drew some conclusions from it, saying that's going to cause disruption to some exchanges and some pools. The resulting mess is going to cause us to have to put a band-aid solution on it where we just tell miners, okay, you need to be doing sensible stuff. You can't upload, serialized malware into the blockchain anymore because it's knocking people offline. We can't get all this stuff whitelisted because it's genuinely malware, even if it's not executable. So this is all a reasonable conclusion to me, and it all gets labeled as fear-mongering and by all of the people that are furious with me. And sure, you can call it fear-mongering, but adversarial thinking is fear-mongering. That's the nature of it. It looks the same. I understand that you need to have some degree of optimism to believe something like Bitcoin could work in the first place, but generally we've been characterized as we've taken the approach of adopting an adversarial mindset. We're always thinking, what could someone do to destroy this network? That seems like a reasonable attack to me. It's not that outlandish. And the other retort is always, well, they can do this already. And this is a really, really just failing to understand the practicalities of what it would require at the moment. I know you can have a 100 kilobyte. I know you can have a 1 megabyte OpReturn. Because the only thing making it difficult to do that is mempool policies, but they're so ubiquitous that if you were to do that, upload 1 megabyte of malware into the blockchain using an out-of-band service like Mara's Slipstream, they're going to say no, they're not going to put it in the chain. We know they moderate, we know they're not crazy, and we know they don't want to be responsible for causing network disruption like that. So the retort, mempool policies are stopping people from attacking the chain. Yeah, right. If you don't believe that, I'm sorry, it's not a consequence of people just being nice that Bitcoin isn't taken offline by people doing consensus valid stuff that's prevented by mempool policy that could cause network disruption. They're not submitting massive amounts of malware to Slipstream because Slipstream is not going to upload it. But if everyone is running Core 30 and all of us are relaying this stuff willy-nilly, then someone is going to put it in the chain. It's going to knock a bunch of nodes offline in the process, but assuming for some reason that a miner that isn't running all their infrastructure in the cloud receives some 90 kilobyte chunk of malware and puts it in the chain, maybe they're a Chinese pool that doesn't follow all this drama. There you go, it's in the chain, now it's in the blockchain. Now every single node running in the cloud that downloads that block and processes the transactions within it to make sure the block is valid triggers the cloud infrastructure that they're running their node in, and it says something's wrong here. And I don't know the consequences of that. I don't know if they close down, if they just kill the VM, or if they send you a nasty letter and let it carry on running. I don't know, but I very much doubt it's the latter. I'm sure you're going to have the VM killed on you, and then you're going to have to deal with it, and there's going to be a massive network outage as a result. The cope of saying that this is already possible means denying the reality of it. Technically, it's possible now, but in reality, you're not going to be able to get a massive amount of malware in one contiguous chunk into the chain using a service like Slipstream. You're going to have to either mine it yourself maliciously, which is why, if you have the power to mine a block, why are you going to do that? Or you're going to have to trick a pool that accepts out-of-band submissions, like Mara. Mara is the only example I know of. Everything else, Antpool and via BTC, they're just accelerators. That's not the same. I don't know if they accept out-of-band stuff. If they do, then you can prove me wrong with that. But the only thing I know of that deliberately solicits stuff that isn't going to relay around the network is Mara's Slipstream, and we know they moderate. If they moderate, they're not going to put malware in the chain. They're already well aware of the consequences of doing that. So it's a point. Maybe it doesn't happen, but I'm pretty sure it does. I don't see why anyone would avoid it. I don't see why anyone would decline to attack us like that if they're feeling like they want to express their hatred for the world that day, which some people just want to watch the world burn. And adversarial thinking requires assuming that people are going to act in bad faith sometimes, and I don't know why we would open it up. And I mean, on its surface, you're increasing the ability to embed serialized, unencrypted, essentially, data in Bitcoin's blockchain by 1,000x. In what planet are we not going to stop and take pause and say that's maybe not a good idea? I know you can upload the same amount of data, but it's always broken up. It's always got, bunches of opcodes separating it all into different chunks. There's never been the option to just upload an 100 kilobyte file verbatim in Bitcoin. Yes, it's been limited by policy, and they're letting that is giving us the illusion of safety, because that's prevented people from actually using what's valid in terms of consensus and using it to attack the system. The fact that they're being prevented by policy, and there's all this rhetoric saying Mempool policy doesn't do anything, so we can just get rid of it, is us operating under a false sense of security. 100 kilobyte files uploaded directly into the blockchain can disrupt stuff, and they haven't been happening. And to the extent that people have been doing stuff like that with out-of-band services, they're not doing fishy stuff like that, because the relevant third party whose permission you need to get it in the chain is not stupid, and they're not about to disrupt the whole system. Mara is the biggest miner in the world. Unless they want to do some market manipulation, which I doubt, because it would be very obvious if they did, they're not about to cause massive disruption to the Bitcoin network by knocking all the VPS nodes offline. So I consider that a reasonable position. And I got a bunch of retort from the standard merch and core devs saying I'm a moron. Nothing more specific than that. Other people calling it fear mongering and things like that. Fine, I expect that stuff. People don't want to hear it. Who am I to make these claims of potential disruption to the network? And I do agree. I don't have the kind of knowledge these guys have, so it's very possible I'm just wrong. But there were a couple of people that pushed back with something more substantive. And what's the name of that thing? There's like the EICAR. It's like a deliberate thing you use to trigger malware detection in a way that like Windows will pick up on if you deliberately include it somewhere, and it's made to read that in some capacity. That's only 68 bytes, right? So that fits even within policy for current op returns, but it's not going to do anything. It's not the same. There's an exception made for stuff like that at the hypervisor level with Amazon Web Servers and Azure, as far as I know. So they keep hitting me with these gotchas. They're like, oh, already possible. And I'm like, well, if it was already possible, why is no one exploiting it? Because it isn't actually already possible. It's technically possible, but it's not feasible. You're going to have to deal with trusted third parties. So it looks like the most you can do at the moment is 4 kilobytes. and that's in the Taproot control block, if I understand correctly. So 4 kilobytes of malware that's going to get processed in the clear, in RAM, in a cloud storage scenario, in a VPS scenario, can that cause disruption? I don't know. I'm not that much of a malware expert. I can't tell you there is nothing that will trigger the scanning that's done by AWS that is 4 kilobytes or less. But I'm 100% sure that after 4 kilobytes, all the way up to 100 kilobytes, you have masses of known malware that people can embed directly in op returns that will definitely trigger the intrusion systems that the Amazon Web Server and Azure run for their own benefit. This is not a purchased service that you can use if you have VPS hosting and you want to have like virus scanning and stuff like that scans the drive on the VPS. It's not that. It's stuff that the VPS provider themselves run for their own intrusion detection. If someone's doing dodgy stuff inside one of the VPSs, they want to know about it. So they scan. They scan the RAM and they scan disk I/O and they make sure you're not doing weird stuff. And if the Bitcoin blockchain has something written into it, or even the mempool of what it is you're using has it, in both cases, the validity of that transaction has to be verified, which means it has to be passed through into RAM. So core devs that keep going on about XOR obfuscation at the drive level do not understand the point I'm making. Yes, that won't trigger it, but that's not the state I'm talking about. The circumstance I am referring to is the one where it gets processed in RAM in the clear. So the XOR obfuscation is irrelevant here. All right, next point. I also saw merch, and Adam Back does this a lot, just saying this same stupid argument that filters don't work. And this, you should all be tired of hearing me combat this at the moment, but unhosted Marsalis came up with another good pushback for it. And I don't know how to characterize it. I think it's just survivorship bias. But it's literally as stupid as saying contraception doesn't work because there are babies. How can there be babies if contraception works? And they keep demanding, show me the evidence that it worked. And I'm saying, I can't show you babies that don't exist because of the contraception people have used to prevent them existing. I can't do that. I can't prove a prophylactic measure worked in any capacity because the thing if it was successful and if it wasn't successful, in both cases, I have to demonstrate things that we don't know wouldn't have happened or that just never happened. I can't do it. It's not possible. So this has been... I don't understand how these brainiacs are missing something so obvious as survivorship bias. It's not that complicated of an abstract to get your head around. The fact that there are babies does not mean that contraceptives don't work. Contraceptives work when you use them quite well. That doesn't mean that people that aren't using them are going to somehow disprove it by the fact that they've rooted around the mechanism or the tool. Spam filters work. If you don't use them and lots of other people don't use them, then you'll see a result of people not using them. You're not seeing the result of them not working. And I don't understand why this is beyond these people. It has to be disingenuous. Let's be honest, man. These people are not that stupid. Saying spam filters don't work. Here's a bunch of spam in the chain. I say I can't point to the spam that's not in the chain. I can't do that. It was never created in the first place because the spam filters exist. I can't prove that. I can't prove that stuff might have happened that didn't happen. It's impossible. A preventative measure being effective means you don't get any evidence of it existing. So anyway, I did a poll on whether you're. I asked for 4 different. I guess I said I asked for people's vaccination status, and I asked for people's perspective on whether they're pro spam filtration or if they're against it. Because I was pretty interested in the data point. I left it deliberately vague as to whether I'm talking about specific COVID shots or all shots, and I tried to put it in an order that I thought was biased against me. So I put, vaccinated and pro filter as the top option. That's not me. I'm well, I'm against the clot shot, but I'm not against filters, obviously. And I was pretty interested with it. It turns out that this is, unfortunately, it's not a big enough data size. Only a little over 1,000 people responded to it, and they're all the people that follow me on Twitter. So it's going to be really biased. It's not that helpful. So it's probably not worth me reading too much into it. Predictably, most people were, didn't take the shot and were in favor of mempool policies, which is my position. That was the third option. The things I did find interesting were the percentage of people that were not vaccinated that disliked mempool policies was higher than the percentage of people that were vaccinated that didn't like mempool policies. So I prefer the vaxxed people. A greater percentage of them agree with me on mempool policy than the unvaxxed people. That really surprised me. What did not surprise me was the fact that the smallest group was vaccinated and disliked mempool policies. That didn't surprise me. And that was the smallest group by far, only getting 9% of people voting that way. And interestingly, that is the position of the core devs. I know that for a fact. Well, all the ones that work at Chaincode Labs anyway, because Chaincode Labs made it mandatory to be vaccinated back in 2022, I believe it was. And they obviously are all against spam filtration and are aggressively trying to get them ripped out of Bitcoin. So it's interesting that, as I said, it's a very small sample size and it's just my followers, so it's really biased, but that is what I expected for the position of core developers to be the least reflected out of the Bitcoiners I know. So there really are odds with at least what I know of the community. Luke released a statement saying Bitcoin is not complete. He supports certain covenants upgrades, certainly CTV, and wants to introduce zero-knowledge stuff, native zero-knowledge support into Bitcoin to help unlock the BitVM stuff. And this caught a lot of people off guard. Some people even that hate everything we're doing, that were like, fine, NOTs is the way to go then, I guess. And I'm, not in alignment with that. I get it, and I'll celebrate certain things he says, and I disagree with other things he says. I'm not just automatically in agreement with Luke on everything. I am more in agreement with probably the things Jimmy Song's been saying lately about covenants. I don't think they've met the burden of proof. I like some of the things they do on paper, but I think Luke made a good point in his post, which is the reason people don't want to be doing upgrades at the moment is because trust has been lost. Segwit and Taproot had horrible byproducts that were not addressed, that need to be addressed. They can be fixed and we can rebuild trust, and then maybe we can start talking about upgrades again. But for now, they aren't being, so no one has the confidence to move forward. People rightly see the core developers as very dishonest and very corrupt. I certainly see them that way. So Luke's statement, I think it contained the correct caveat. If the network moves the way it's supposed to move and is moving at the moment away from the issues in Bitcoin Core, to put it lightly, then yeah, maybe I will become more confident about upgrades like CTV again. As I said, I like what it does on paper, but I'm also just not particularly compelled by it and never have been. The last time I went nuts about pushing for an upgrade was Taproot, and I regret what I did because I missed things about it, and I'm never going to be that confident or cocky or arrogant again to believe that something can not have any unforeseen consequences. I definitely learnt my lesson there and swallowed the humble pill. So yeah, I think, I want to stress that again. He made a good point. Luke definitely made a good point there that confidence being lost is a thing that needs to be regained before we can do anything again. And he basically paints it as a foregone conclusion that core is over and it's just a matter of process now, the network finally routing around it. I mean, we're at 18 or 19% of the nodes now, depending on what you look at. Super Testnet did post something today saying, I have a suspicion that a lot of this is, Sybil attack, and that the number is really more like 13%, I think he said, or 12%. This seemed to negate the fact that a lot of new node runners are there, because initially when the hype around NOTs started back in April or May, core nodes dropped and NOTs nodes went up in proportion. So everyone buys that. That's not fake, right? That you'd have had to have been running a bunch of core nodes before that period of time to create a signal like that. That was, no one called that a Sybil attack. And then after that, just the NOTs nodes have been going up and up steadily since then without really core dropping that much. And people are painting it as an either or. That can be genuine, which is new people running nodes that weren't before, or it can be the same people as before, just running more and more nodes. Certainly, they've accused us of the latter a lot. The reality is it's a combination of both. I know a lot of people are running more than one NOTs node just to make it look better, just to make the numbers look better. I'm well aware that's happening. I'm not encouraging it. I don't want these numbers to be fake. I do believe we have a genuine adoption of NOTs going on. But I also know that I get hundreds of messages from people saying, I agree with what you're saying, and I've never run a node before. I'm now running NOTs. And I know that Start9 is not pretending to be out of stock. I know that they are selling out every month of servers, and the messaging that they're receiving and the download stats from their marketplace shows them that everyone is buying their servers so that they can run NOTs. So there is definitely a lot of genuine adoption there. And don't tell me those aren't economic nodes, because with Start9, you can fire up Lightning nodes or anything, or mempool space, anything is one-click install on top of your Bitcoin node. And that makes it something you're genuinely using rather than just running another redundant copy of the blockchain with its own mempool policies and all that. So I think I'm going to be candid and say it's both. And that's annoying if people consider that dishonest, because it's not. I can't stop people from running more than one NOTs node. I've already said I don't approve of it, and please don't pollute the genuine nature and perception of what's happening with NOTs adoption by spinning up fake nodes. I would rather people didn't do that. But at the same time, I can't stop them from doing it, and I'm aware they're going to. And I run more than one NOTs node myself, but I can explain why I do that. I only have one listening node, which is the only one that shows up on the stats. Actually, no, that's not true, because I have another listening node, but it only listens over Tor. That will still show up on the website as at the tracking sites as two nodes, but the reality is I need it. I'm not going to turn off Tor for that, and the main listening node I have that isn't Tor is one I run genuinely just as a public service, so people can do IBD quickly. All the other nodes I have are not listening nodes, and I need them because I have a test suite for all of the latest versions of NOTs and Datum, and Datum gets upgraded regularly. So I have Windows node, I have a Debian node, I have an Ubuntu node, I have an Umbrel node, I have an Alt 0351 Start OS node, I have an 040 Start OS node. Both of those will show up as listening, by the way. So yeah, a bunch of these are going to show up as listening, but I need them. They're not on all the time, but generally when I turn them off to save resources, I regret it because a couple of weeks go by and then I need to test it and I have to sync up to the tip of the chain again, which is just annoying to do when you suddenly need to test something. So yeah, that's it. That's a brief update for now. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll keep you in the loop because the situation is developing rapidly. We're probably like 4 weeks away from Core 30 now. And oh yeah, I went off on a massive tangent there without remembering the central point of why I was talking about node numbers. Core NOTs 29 is out now and it's being adopted. I already see 465 listening nodes of NOTs 29. That came out on like Saturday or something. That's 2% of the listening nodes are already running NOTs 29. The latest core, which is 29.1, hasn't shown up on Clark Moody yet. That can be him just not including it yet. I did look on Luke's stats and he has 29.1, the latest core release, as... Wait, hold on. 29.1... He has the latest core release at 352 non-listening. Well, all nodes. So given that it's about a quarter of, usually your listening nodes are like a quarter of the amount of nodes, extrapolating there, you're looking at about 90. So the latest NOTs has 460, and the latest core has 90. Those pretty cherry-picked numbers, though. I'm not going to lie. If we go to the version just prior, which is what everyone's running on at the moment, you have core 29.0 at 4,500, 4,600 nodes, 20% of the network, and you have the NOTs that is just the combination of the NOTs that came out a couple of days ago and the one everyone is still running is at. What is that at? We're at 2% plus 16, but we're at 18. We're at 18.5%. So basically, the latest NOTs is at 18.5%, and the latest core is at 19.5%. So we're 50-50 at the moment for updated nodes. And I already admitted that I know some people are running more than one NOTs node frivolously just to make the stats look good. But that doesn't mean no one in core is. I don't know, I'm sure they posture, and we do see regular swings, in the stats of how many core nodes are there. For some reason, it shoots up and down by about 500. That can just be weirdness and eccentricities with the tracking on those websites. I don't know. But if we're 50-50 at the moment, and I'm still getting told core are stupid, NOTs are stupid, dumb people that don't know how to, they're in a cult, all this stupid insults that keep getting thrown our way. Hey, if half the network has walked away from you, sure, they're not half the miners, all right, fine, but they're still half of the people that are supposed to be running your software. Who are you, Samson Mao is just saying, who are you writing your software for? If you have utter contempt for the people that don't like the change you made, and you do nothing but insult them. Even Rockstar Dev was insulted, right? DeRosier was like, you're just calling him a LARPer, doing nothing and not encouraging people to actually use Bitcoin, when it's the exact opposite. All he does is go around from conference to conference. He worked on BTC Pay Server. He's working on real meat-based stuff to help Bitcoin adoption grow, and he's a great advocate for it. So to be insulted by a core developer, who's having whose ego is offended by the fact that we don't like the change they're forcing down our throat, and feels the need to insult people as a result, is just it shows a lack of integrity. It's not that it's just wartime scenario and everyone is taking shots at everyone else and it's survival of the fittest or anything. It's just unprofessional. And I'm not a representative of NOTs. I mean, a lot of people are looking at me for this content at this point, but they insult me constantly by calling me just a podcaster, not technical, all that stuff. First off, some of the arguments I've made were right that they just straight up didn't think about. And this should be enough for them to take pause and say, all right, we need to eat some humble pie here, but they're not doing it. And second off, even if they're right, even if I'm completely stupid when it comes to Bitcoin and I'm misleading people intentionally, or I genuinely believe wrong stuff, even if that's true, who am I? I have a big audience at this point, but I am known for not being technical. I will tell you, I do not have any commits in the core repo. I barely know how to write Python. I'm all right at some systems administrative stuff. That's about it. But my understanding of Bitcoin is decent, and I engage in decent faith as well. I've lost it a few times, and I've been disrespectful to people. I know it happens. It's pretty messy out there. But generally, if I'm wrong about something, I don't want that to permeate and propagate around the network as an understanding. I would still love to be wrong about this entire thing, because all it comes down to for me is I have my life savings in this, and I want it to persist and last. This is not about Ocean. It's not about me developing personal clout or anything. This is just the fact that I care about Bitcoin. It's been good to me, and I've paid close attention to it forever. And I don't want to see the system get undermined. And I believe that's what this change does. So the fact that we're 50-50 And the new knots is getting updated very quickly. Some of that is thanks to Leo, because he packages things up really quickly for Umbrel, Start9, and all that. I don't know who handles the core updates for those things. I don't know if they have a Leo, but I think the nodes that are paying attention, half of them are on our side and half of them are on core side. Now, that's not sustainable. I suspect we're going to fall to Pareto distribution at some point just because everything does. It looks like we're at 20% of all the nodes at the moment. And then eventually some event will happen where these old nodes, these old core nodes from people that just aren't paying attention anymore, just give up. Maybe it's when we hit 1 terabyte and then suddenly we're at 80% NOTs nodes because everything is quite recent at that point. I expect NOTs to actually reach that. I'm nowhere near certain or anything like that. I would love to be, but I'm just not. We've got a lot of transitioning to do before NOTs can take that kind of strain of being the dominant implementation. It's still a fork of core. If you want to make pull requests into it, someone has to pull request into core in the first place, so Luke can draw from that into what NOTs is. It's not its own thing yet. It's still just a fork of core. We got a long way to go. We got more developers now. We got more eyes on it. We've got people raising money for it. Dennis Port has been raising money for it. I will state unequivocally, I don't have anything to do with that. I've spoken to him about it once. It's his own thing. I told him straight up, I do not have time to become part of fundraising efforts and handling of money for people that want to donate money for bug bounties in knots or paying developers or anything like that. So that's its own thing. Don't come to me if that all goes weird. I know I should probably have some eyes on it, and I will probably be held responsible if anything goes weird with it, but I do not have the time, guys. I still have a job at Ocean to do, and I'm still a dad. So fighting this spam war eats up so much of my time. I just don't have the time to manage a Dennis Porter project raising money for NOTs people. It's just not within scope of what I have time for, unfortunately. So yeah, let's see what happens over the next month. I think we'll see knots head up into the low 20% of the listening nodes. People can say, oh, it's all posturing and nonsense. But again, Start9 are selling out every month from their servers. And that's people buying physical machines. I don't think they're doing that for posturing purposes. If they do, it's silly because spin them up in the cloud. It's a lot cheaper if you really want to just posture. And most of those are only listening on the Tor network, right? But yeah, that is counted, so it's relevant. Yeah, I think we're going to be in the low 20%. If people want to be pessimistic, they can say, oh, it's only really 15 or 16%. But when you compare with more recent versions of Core, it starts to become more like 40 to 60% of the nodes actually paying attention and running recent versions. So I don't know, man. I think core is rapidly falling apart, and I think if there was any legitimacy here, I wouldn't be dealing with this dishonest crap every day, and the sheer harassment is just staggering to me. I already made a video the other day on, my other half getting harassed with these horrible insinuations. That more falls towards like Core supporters than Core themselves. Core have not really come after me and insulted me. Peter Todd will like daily call me a liar, and usually I respond and point out that what he's saying isn't true and that what I'm saying is, and it usually goes off with us prodding each other and just generally getting nowhere productive. But he's never called me a liar and me have to admit it and say, okay, I was lying about this, because I've never been lying. I've been wrong before, but not in anything he's accused me of or caught me in. So other than that, yeah, I get Antoine will insult me a lot. He accuses me of misleading people and, and this all being Ocean marketing stunt. Believe me, it's not. The pushback Ocean gets from miners that don't like our stance on this is just something that, if you could see, you would laugh at the idea that this is an Ocean marketing stunt. Miners on the whole believe nonsense about spam filtration, meaning it costs them money or that it's censorship, and these are complete lies, but they're very dominant narratives. So So I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do, not because Ocean benefits from it. Just makes our job harder. Yeah, all right. So I'll end the video there. Thanks for watching as usual, and I'll see you probably in a few days. Bye.